So it's setting you up. Okay. Okay, I think, yeah, it's live stream. Hey everyone, welcome to our today's session. If someone, oh, I can hear myself. I make the same mistake. Okay, if someone on the chat could just confirm they hear well, see well, that will be helpful. Okay, I'm assuming they can. I'm just waiting for someone to confirm.
No, man, I'm on the line and it is still waiting.
Uh, can you refresh? I think I refreshed. Yeah, people are confirming they can hear, and so just refresh. So you should be fine. All right. Thank you very much for joining us today here. This is our 22nd session. It's been a fun ride and a train we had in last almost 2 months now. We are having every Wednesday session since April 1st. So it's a long way to go. And I hope you all are safe wherever you are. So just stay like that. As usual, I am Manik. For those who are joining us first time, I'm an architect at Avio Consulting, and today it's gonna be a very interesting topic. It is migration from Mule 3 to Mule 4, probably one of the hottest topics in Mule world because people always keep talking about migration. And we have architect from MuleSoft, Prasenjit Banerjee, who is gonna walk us over this migration steps. So before I hand it over to Prasenjit, usual common announcement for those who are joining us for first time, there is a YouTube chat on right side of your video. Feel free to drop your questions, comments, anything in there. At the end of the presentation, we will go over all those questions and try to cover as much as we can. And yeah, with that, I think it's time, Prasenjit, it's all yours. Please start.
Hey, thank you, Manik. Are you able to hear me? Just confirming.
Yeah, I can hear you, and I believe people can also hear you. If someone can just confirm you can hear Prasenjit very well, that will be helpful too. Thanks.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. I'm Prasenjit. I'm a technical architect with MuleSoft. I'm with MuleSoft for over a year now. And prior to that, I've been doing integrations for over 10 years now. So I'm happy to talk in the MuleSoft meetups forum. It's going great. And thank you, Mani, for inviting me to this. And I also run a MuleSoft meetup based out of Chicago. We have also gone virtual for a couple of sessions there, but that's mostly in person so far for Chicago. So it's been a good experience so far. And today we are going to talk about a very, very relevant and hot topic now, which is Mule 3 to Mule 4 migration. So this is a topic that is very broad in itself. So when I thought about, presenting this topic, I thought about what are the most relevant things I should try to cover in about 30 minutes, because that's the right time frame, plus minus 5 minutes here and there. So then I thought about, that because if we have to go deep into any specific things, we'll definitely miss out some things else. So then I thought that, let's zoom out and try to understand a few things that would apply to everybody. So everybody who are considering to move from Mule 3 to Mule 4, who are already in the process of doing that, and who have already maybe done some of that and are reflecting on how they have done it, or they're thinking of going for their next stage of doing that for their next set of applications. So a very high level introduction to what is Mule 4. Mule 4 is our latest reactive non-blocking runtime from MuleSoft. It's been in the market for about 2 years now. So it has gone through some cycles. It has hardened itself. It's a completely re-architected version that is there, which is now the latest in terms of the cutting edge technologies available in ESB and IPaaS space. So, so when I say completely re-architected, it is built on reactive programming. It is fundamentally following the non-blocking architecture, and it's reactive in nature. So if I want to go in details of exactly how the architecture has gone, that would be a totally different topic. So I would not go there. But there are a lot of benefits around Mule 4 that are exclusive to Mule 4, and we are going to talk about that in details for most part of our presentation. So the next thing is what I wanted to quickly discuss is about why move, right? And why move? What was there in Mule 3, and what are some of the things that we have solved for in Mule 4? So one of the thing is simplicity. So simplicity, when we talk about simplicity, we take an average Mule 3 flow and think about, okay, what are the different components that can get into a Mule 3 flow, and how can we simplify it so that we can learn it quickly, we can apply it easily, and we can go fast in the market. So that's one of the core aspects of Mule 4. Build your integrations faster. So when you look at a medium complexity Mule 3 flow, you have these components that you have to incorporate that mostly goes into a Mule 3 flow, which is you have mail expressions, you have data weave, you have connectors, transport, Java in some places, streams, you have to incorporate separately, watermark in case of batch, or schedulers, object store, enricher pattern. So these are some of the concepts that you typically would find in a Mule 3 flow. So in a roundabout, we have seen on an average complexity Mule 4, you talk about 22 concepts, about 13 steps to implement, and some Java and .NET specialties would be required in some places for doing some transformations. That same kind of flow in Mule 4 is highly simplified. So from 22 concepts, we're down to 9 concepts. From 13 steps, we are down to 5 steps. And from specialties around Java or .NET, we are talking about mostly generalists and some specialists in case it's required. So the main takeaway, or the main point of view for Mule 4, one of the main point of view of Mule 4 is the simplicity. So you need to know less to do more. So now let's come to the migration aspect of it. So when we talk about migration, and been talking across different customers who are in different stages of their migration journey, there are a few things that we come across very often. And that is some of the things that I wanted to discuss with you, some of the generic things that we need to keep in mind while we are doing the migration. And then we are going to get into what are some of the aspects that you need to take into consideration while you are doing the migration. And then for the most part of our presentation, we'll look at some of the salient features that Mule 4 offers, and some other things that you must take into consideration while you are going through that journey of making that move from Mule 3 to Mule 4. So before I get in, I would like to hear from you in the chat. And obviously I would continue, but you can pour your thoughts in, and we'll be able to review them once we have gone through that. Is just trying to get an idea, like how many of you have already migrated Mule 3 projects to Mule 4? That's question number one. And question number two is, what are some of the challenges that you might have faced while you went through this migration process? And what are some of the key takeaways that you had when you went from Mule 3 to Mule 4? So please keep pouring that in the chat. And for the sake of time, I'm going to run through the presentation as of now. I'm not going to wait for your answers to see, because that may cause a disruption and time constraint. But we are going to go back to those answers. So now we are going to talk about, okay, what does it take, when to start, and what do you do to prepare? So these are some of the things that you may already know, but some of the very important things that if somebody who is trying to go into that migration process must keep in mind. That is, the Mule 3 and Mule 4 will not run on the same runtime engine. They would be different. So apps built for Mule 3 are not compatible for Mule 4, and Mule 4 would need Studio 7, whereas Mule 3 would need Studio 6. And one important consideration is, if you're on-prem, then you need to spin up a different server with a different runtime. It's slightly more flexible in Cloud Hub, because if you're in Cloud Hub or if you're in Runtime Fabric, you can individually select the runtime version of that Mule and you can go ahead with it. Then when to start? One of the important things that we need to consider is, if we are kicking off a new project, you should definitely be in Mule 4. You should not consider building new stuff in Mule 3. Identify, or maybe if that is not the case, then another entry point could be, if you can identify a couple of projects that can be migrated with minimal impact. Third entry point could be that your existing Mule 3 projects would need business changes, or like updation in terms of capabilities, business, some features that you need to incorporate, some functional things that you may need to change. So the point is, if you have to make a change anyway, why not use that to go for this migration, at least for that application? So that is kind of that extension, that when you need business logic changes or platform updates, take that opportunity to and migrate that to Mule 4. Another opportunity is that there are a lot of salient features that are in Mule 4 that are not there in Mule 3, and we are going to talk about them in more details. So if one of those features applies to you, then I think it's a good entry point, and take advantage of that and move to Mule 4. The last but not the least is, you know that you have to move to Mule 4 anyway in some period of time, which is a reasonable time frame for now. You don't have to hurry, but it's a reasonable time frame. Then in that case, why don't you move ahead for staying up with the good hygiene? So another thing is, obviously, when we think about preparing ourselves for Mule 3 to Mule 4, what are the trainings that are available, right? So there are a few standard trainings that are available, which are very specific for this journey, for this migration, which is Mule 4 for Mule 3 users. So please take advantage of that. Then spend a couple of days learning about Mule 4 and Studio 7 from all the documentation that is available. And that's a huge amount of documentation that is already available in docs.mulesoft.com. Take advantage of that. Then spend a couple of days, just try to build a simple, or what we call a hello world type of project in Mule 4 and Studio 7, and see how does that look like. If you have not already take that Mule 4 certification course, or you can take the Delta version if you already have the Mule 3 certification course. Another thing that I would like to highlight is that data weave has significantly changed. And that is something that you come up very often while you are when you are doing any type of a project. So I would highly recommend you do a data weave course, which is dedicated to data weave 2 that is applicable for Mule 4. So there is an migration assistant tool that we are thinking to GA. It is not it has not been GA'd yet. A tentative timeline would be around the end of Q2, which is about July. But I don't want to hard commit on these. This is just something that is in the pipeline. But some of the things to note is that it is not a supported thing. So it is something which is going to be open source. So, but something that we are thinking to, put in as a kind of an assistant. So you can, that will not do the migration for you. This is very important to note, that it will not do, so it will not do the actual migration for you, but it is going to be an assistant giving you hints and directions and tips around how to migrate that specific project on which you are applying the assistant. So it's going to give you directions. It's going to, it will have its sort of limitations. It may not be able to, look at custom code and few other features, but it can be a good place to start. It will not be an end in itself. This is very important to remember. And again, not supported. It's going to be an open source code. So, but it is something that will give you some direction and hopefully will be helpful. There is a ton of documentation that is already available. I don't want to go in details of that, but I'll share the presentation anyways. These documentations are slightly older, but when you click on these links, it will actually give you the updated version. So in Mule 4.3, that is the latest runtime, so you can see that. Then there are a lot of blogs around. You can just keep reading around them. They're very interesting. They talk about different features about Mule 4, connectors, data weaves. And then I would want to come into this second stage where I want to introduce you to a couple of thought points. So one of them is that this is a good opportunity to re-architect in case you have some significant Mule 3 projects that you want to move to Mule 4, and those Mule 3 projects you have built over time, and you were not sure about how far will you go with Mule, so you didn't have a very significant architecture laid out. It may be point-to-point, maybe partially API-led, maybe you have done some integrations here and there which are not very consistent, which is possible, right? We see that all the time with all the customers. This is one big opportunity where you can streamline it. You can adopt an API-led architecture. We can go an event-driven architecture if possible. Take advantage of the latest features like streaming APIs, platform events, triggers, and all those things that are available in Mule 4, and build the piece altogether that are more than the sum of its parts. So if you had been all looking for an opportunity where you could have realigned and built the API-led way that we all talk about, this is the place to do it, or this is the time to do it. Another thing is, which I find very interesting, and I've seen come across a lot with our customers, and something that I keep saying to avoid is that do not jump the gun. So do not instantly try working on the migration. The migration will be better if you think through it and build a couple of reusable artifacts that you can use across your projects. And here are some examples. Error handling has been highly enriched in Mule 4. There are a lot of talk points around it. There is a lot of features. We are going to go into some of those details a few minutes later, but take advantage of that. Build a uniform error handling framework. Take advantage of the try scope, retry scope. There are a lot of built-in errors that are already available now in Mule 4. Take advantage of that. The next thing is build a common logging framework. This is something that you may have always complaining about, that our logging is not very uniform. That maybe some places the logging is awful. Maybe some places we have used some components which are good, but then again, it's not across the organization, so we are not able to reap the benefits. This is your time to build a common JSON logging framework. Go to JSON logging instead of a pattern layout, and then probably use a key value pair. We can talk about this in more details. This is a topic in itself, but try this out. There are a lot of materials already available, and build some common reusable templates if you can. So every organization have some integration themes. There are some, say for example, some organizations are heavy SAP shop, and there is a lot of things that are going around SAP. Some are Salesforce type, and then there are a lot of things that are going around Salesforce. So integrations are around Salesforce. All integrations are kind of around SAP. In those scenarios, try to see if you can build some reusable templates. And first, see if you have templates that are already available in the public MuleSoft organization in the Exchange. If not, build some and publish it in your organization. If you cannot think of a template, think of some YAML fragments that you can build, and then you can leverage it across your projects. So if you can make these things, then your integration or your migration will be smoother, and the overall product is going to be much better. Once we are done with that, I would say, and this is just this is a typical recommendation. Obviously, you have to slice and dice as per your requirements, but basically, you divide it into 3 phases. So the first phase will be typically identify some simple applications. So basically take a stock of your Mule 3 projects. What are they? What are the connectors you have used? What are the salient features of those Mule 3 projects, applications that you have that you need to migrate? And then classify that into probably 3 phases, which is like simple, medium, and complex. So some guidelines here, like simple is no custom components, simple data web transformations. Don't take up some very complex data web transformations in the first phase. The reason is that you will learn through the steps, and so it is better if you take them later rather than you take them first. Simple data wave and connector incompatibility is not there. On a note, connector incompatibility is highly solved in Mule 4.3. So if you want to take advantage of that, use latest Mule runtime, which is 4.3, which is very recently released. That comes with Studio 7.5. But anyways, so it's classified into simple, medium. Medium, I would say, have some batch scope, some record vars, some watermarks that you need to transform. Think about them as medium. And high complexity would be very high usage of data weave, very high usage of custom object stores, because these are some of the things that you have to transform into the new model. So you need to have some experience of doing that in some of those other steps. So just phase it out in 1, 2, and 3, and then take these individual phases to live so that you have some experience and gain some experience out of the process. In this third phase, which is the last phase of our Mule 3 to Mule 4, we are going to take a deep dive and look at what are the differentiating factors. And here also, we'll probably not look at all differentiator factors for time, but we'll look at some essential differentiating factors that you must take advantage of while you are making this transition, so that you are not robotic while you are thinking about this Mule 3 to Mule 4. And that's the idea, right? We did not want you to be robotic, because they're very different architectural style, programming style. So take advantage of the latest features is what the message is. If you go robotic, you may just think about how you can make the Mule 3 project compatible to Mule 4, and that's not the idea. That is one of the key takeaways I want you to take away from this. So now Okay, so now these are some of the themes that we are going to, and we are going to look at what are the different new features or improved features we are going to have, we have along these themes. So what are the themes? The themes are speed of delivery. That's what I mentioned in the first. It's very important. Speed of delivery, easy to learn, fewer concepts, and so that faster developer onboarding. Actionable visibility. This is a very important thing that has been highly stressed. Proactive error handling. So error handling has improved a lot. Easier runtime configuration management. Simple and intuitive. High on performance. We are going to look around that towards a latest part of our presentation. How is Mule 4 runtime engine different, and so how is tuning different in Mule 4 than in Mule 3? Future-proof architecture, that's more about the same thing, that is like a self-tuning runtime engine and extensible, plus how class loading works, and intentional self-service. So there's a lot of collaboration that is available. This is more coming up with 4.3. We'll see if we have time, we can take a look. So few slides I'm going to go a little faster, and few slides I will try to spend a little more of time to accommodate the overall time, so that we have good time for some question answers and all stuff like that. So for example, data weave. So obviously data weave gone through a sea of change, and and this is just an example. I mean, there are so many changes in data weave that is itself a class, a 2-day course by itself. So but what I'm trying to say is, like, it has changed a lot. So take take some time to really absorb that change. If you're looking for, what's the compatibility around this that is not working now, and then what tweak do I have to make to just get this working, that's probably not what we want you to do. Again, so for example, Java is now much easier to incorporate. Then list, map, arrays, they are much simpler. Using a function is much simpler. We try to make it more user friendly as well, in terms of multi-line comments, more readable, and things like that. Data weave 2.0 is a huge improvement on data weave 1 in terms of performance, in terms of simplicity. It may not look like that in the first go. And why is that? The reason is because we are coming from Mule 3 to Mule 4. If you are a developer who have just started on directly with Mule 4, and I'm sure there are few of you among you who have gone through that, I don't think that, if you have started directly with Mule 4, you have faced this problem. But I totally understand, and this is obvious. It has happened to me and happened to a lot of others as well. Is that when you come from Mule 3 to Mule 4, there is this friction. This is the biggest friction, right? This is the friction where we think that, well, this used to work like this, and now it's not working. And what I do, and because, okay, now they have made it different. Why did they make it different? So there are some of these things where the frictions will come, and it will only go over with experience. There is no magic tricks around that. But please understand that when we went through this, some of the things that we tried to take care of is to reduce Java expertise. You don't, even if obviously if you have Java expertise is great, but if you don't have Java expertise, it should be flexible. So that was one of the theme that we had in mind. Another theme was making it human readable. So try to have less jargons as possible, try to have it more simplified, and at the same time intuitive to use maps and lists and all those features. So along those lines, there are few things that also comes up here, like for example, how you can hold the payload in a target variable. One of the very big fundamental changes in Mule 4, right? The pay, or you can hold the original payload in a target variable, and then you can use it in many different ways. And and you can take care of it. That simply was, it's a simple thing, but it has gone through significant changes. Previously we used to have the enricher. Now all we have is the target variable. Then one of the very important things that have come up in Mule 4.3 with Studio 4 7.5 is test recorder. It's a great feature, and I'm sure that you're exploring now. If you are not, please download the latest Studio and Mule and start exploring this. This is about how you can use a recorder to automatically write Mule units for you. So this is one thing where we went across with customers to see if they had units, and some of them didn't have units, and the reason was they said that it just takes so much time to write, or maybe it's just why I have to get my project live as soon as possible, and this is just an extra step. So we went back and tried to see how we can simplify this, simplifying writing the unit. And that was a great idea, that if we can just run our code and record the steps, and if we see if Studio can generate the unit for us, would not have that been awesome? So that is exactly what we have tried to do in the latest version. Check it out, share your feedback around that, and so it's going to get better, obviously, henceforth. This is just a continuation on the same thing. So on MUnit is focused on automation. Creating MUnit and test suites are now faster than ever before. You don't have to generate those test cases and write, even those they were drag and drop. You can just record your version of the flow, and then automatically the MUnit is generated behind the scene, and you can obviously go and tweak it if you want. Another important thing was error handling. Error handling has significantly changed. There are extensive write-up around this. I'm sure you're taking advantage of that. But some of the things that I would like to mention is these new themes of on error propagate and on error continue. Now this gives you the flexibility to know what actions you want to take once you have that error. And then now that there are a lot of also pre-built error messages that you can take advantage of just by clicking the drag and drop. It's also very important to see that now that you have this error, what type of error it is, and would you like to retry that? So you can put that in a try scope. That was some of the features that have been introduced in Mule 4 that were not there in Mule 3. So this is another thing where I think that we should spend significant amount of time, understand and absorb what are the differences that have come up in error handling, and see how you can take advantage of it in your projects, rather than not just trying to be compatible and make those minimal changes so that you have just finished the project, you have just migrated the Mule 3 to Mule 4. That's probably not the optimal way of doing that. The next thing is, I'm again just trying to go a little bit faster because I have a few slides that I have to come, but we can always, these are topics by itself, and we can definitely go deeper if we have to. And I'm trying to keep some time for the question answers. So other thing is the easier runtime configuration management with YAML. So we had a properties file, and we had steps to externalize those properties file. We just try to make this more easy. So data streaming, this is a very important feature. Data streaming is now by default. So now you no longer need to worry about answering questions such as which components are allow streaming and which components does not. You don't need to know that. It's behind the scene for you. Is the stream consumed at this point? You always had to code for the streaming feature. You don't have to do that now. At which position is the stream anyway? What does the streaming even mean? Even you don't have to know that. It's streaming has been taken care by default. Even if you consider logging, and logging also has inbuilt streaming now. So basically, you don't have to think about, okay, if I am logging, and now that I have a very big object that I have to log, that's that going to take up a lot of memory and is going to inherently slow down my performance? Not really that much, because it's streaming. Then there are a lot of new things that have come up, which definitely you should take care of or take advantage of. One is triggers. So triggers are now supported for Salesforce connector, SFTP connector, FTP connector, and database connector. So there are a lot of connectors that support this trigger functionality. And trigger helps us to update bidirectionally or unidirectionally as and when there is some changes that are happening in one of those system of records. And so you don't have to build a polling around those applications. So applications can get chatty when you are consistently polling. So you can streamline them with triggers. Very important concept. Then just on a continuation on that part, there are a lot of connectors that are available, and these are improved connectors. So here are some of the things where when we went to Mule 4, with 4.1, there were some connectors that were not compatible with Mule 4, and they were only with Mule 3, and there were some frictions around that. So now with the passage of time and with eventually with 4.3, we have largely reduced the gap to an extent that I think we can theoretically say that we don't have any connector that is now there in Mule 3, but we don't have any equivalent answer of that in Mule 4. So that is not only in terms of connectors, in terms of functionality. There were some functional gaps also that there were in Mule earlier version of Mule 4.1 when it was released. And with the passage of time, we have hardened that up. So there are no functional incompatibility between Mule 4 and Mule 4 and Mule 3. Then this is a very important concept. This is the concept of us like a runtime engine being self-tuning. I don't know if there is an animation. I'm not sure if it's rendering properly, but it should. So the idea is, I don't think it's rendering properly, but anyways, I'll go ahead. So basically, there are three pools now. It has been highly simplified. It's a resource-based view of the system. So there are pools like CPU intensive, CPU light, and blocking IO. So basically, it's taking a resource view of the system. So and we can classify any action as being CPU light. For example, logging is CPU light. But if you're having a lot of data weave transformations, then that is CPU intensive. So that will by default go to CPU intensive. And then if you have some database connection and you are having an FTP connection, you are reading a file, that's IO. So based on that, the thread switching happens, and that's a topic by itself. But if you have to tell it in a concise way, Mule 4 takes a resource-based view of the system, and then it basically intelligently allocates threads. So it may feel to you that I don't have the staged event-driven architecture where I can go staged asynchronous, staged synchronous, non-blocking. You can choose at the flow level, at the connector level, and that you don't have to do that. I mean, so it may feel that you have been ripped off of your freedom a little bit to play around these, to tune it. But honestly, if you look at it in a different way, this is more flexibility to you. You code the way you want to, and Mule 4, while executing the code, takes a resource-based view of the system and allocates each action to a specific thread pool. And there are little bit flexibility which is available where you can tune your thread pools, but we generally recommend that we don't have to do it. So you can go to scheduler conf and size your thread pools, but that is to a second or third order need. Ideally, you don't have to do that. Mule 4 should be able to automatically handle that for you. Then another thing that is a huge difference or a huge benefit that has come up is class loader isolation. So now an easy Maven support. So we have really changed the way class loading works in Mule 4. Every component inside Mule container has its own class loader. And this is a fundamental shift as to how Mule 3 was packaged and how Mule 4 is packaged. Your application code is now run separately in an internal Mule code. So code has become much light. And if you see the way the class loading happens, and we can go into that in more details, but this is one of the fundamental concepts and that's why I'm stressing. If you would want to spend some time around when you want to do the migration, this is one of the points. So data weave is one of the point. Streaming by default is one of the point. Take advantage of streaming wherever possible. Take advantage of class loader isolation wherever possible. Take advantage of this of the self-tuning runtime engine wherever possible. So in case you have a lot of Mule apps where you had to tune them individually, you don't have to think about that. Go easy on that. And all Mule 4 projects are Mavenized by default. So you have a POM file and you have the dependency management right there in the POM file, and that the way it has been built up, the class loading is also tied to that. And an interesting thing that now you can use your own Spring version. You could not do that before because the Spring version would have conflicted with your existing Spring version of the Mule source code, but it will not happen because now it has been completely isolated. So if you want to, you can take advantage of that. So a simple continuation of that, basically, there is so there is the POM, and then there is the connectors, and then there's connectors loads, and then so POM loads those the basic dependencies, then the connectors, and then the flows, and then your application loads up. So so here are some of those pain points which we kind of addressed, like the library changes would have forced your application to go for updates or runtime updates. You don't have to do that anymore. Class loader isolation separates applications from runtime and connectors. So everything is individual. Your individual library for a particular connector is now separate and doesn't have much tie up. It's not tightly coupled to your runtime. Get connector fixes and enhancements without upgrading your runtime version, a major upgrade in Mule 4, right? So, and this is on the slightly advanced level that we have come up with this Mule SDK. So now previously there was a little bit of a streamline issue in terms of when you want to develop something, where do we do? I mean, there was this SDK, but then now it's uniform. Even we develop using the same SDK, and if you have to build a custom connector, you build the same SDK. So consistent user experience, single extensibility layer. So use the SDK for any purpose. Even the engineers at Mule use the same SDK as you do. I think that it's a great feature by itself. So I know I have rushed this a little bit through, but it was a little bit intentional to keep some time for questions. And I know there's a lot of topic that we covered, but I hope you have some takeaway as to when you think about the migration, what are the things that you must consider. And with that, I would open up for questions. Thank you.
Hey, Prasenjit, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can
All
hear
right.
you.
All right. Thank you. That was an awesome presentation. So many topics, like you said, so many topics, so many things we covered in there. And that there was a good discussion on the chat too. Let me just grab the chat. So many things open up. And yeah, okay, yeah, there was a lot of things in there. So let me, I grabbed few questions from there apart from discussions. So let's go over the questions first, and then we can probably grab through the discussions also. One of the, I think the first question that I grabbed was Prashant, I guess you mentioned somewhere error handling is proactive. Was that right? So the question was like, how is error handling proactive given error handling is inherently reactive? Did he miss anything when you was talking about that?
Okay, I think that's a good question. So when you talk about error handling being proactive, what we mean is that we have now a host of just trying to bring that slide up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah. So now, so error handling, what we are saying is design time proactiveness. What that means is that now while you are designing, you can design for whether what you want to do once the error comes up. So, and that we have given you a lot of bells and whistles that was not there before. So, for example, we have introduced, so kind of giving more bells and whistles and giving more options is what we are talking about as design time proactiveness. So at design time, you get to choose what you want to do. You want to propagate that error, you want to continue that error. Another thing is at design time, would you want to go for a try scope or a retry scope? These scopes were not there before. So by that, we typically mean proactiveness. Obviously, I hear you that error handling is reactive in the sense that when there is an error, you react. And you react, so your code is hardened enough to react to that particular code, to react to that particular error scenario, so that it doesn't blow up. I hear that piece. The point of view here is it's proactive in the sense that at design time you have features to understand what you want to do given that particular error comes up. Does that answer your question?
Uh, Probably yes. It wasn't mine, so I hope Prashant that answers the questions. If not, feel free to write back on the comments. The next one I got, yeah, he said thanks, he got it. So the next one was around the properties, right? Mule 4 introduced YAML support for properties. There was a discussion
Right.
on the chat, so we answered. But one of the, do you think there are any performance improvements or any difference between using a YAML property versus a regular traditional properties file, apart from just the structure? Like, is there any other benefit
Yeah,
we
very
can get?
very good question. Yeah, so if you ask me first order, I think the first order, based on my experience, and I'm not obviously a performance expert, but based on my experience, first order thing is the user friendliness. Okay, the user friendliness is the first thing that was brought up. When I don't think there is an inherent performance benefit. It is definitely not any way worse than than what we had. But the main theme around introducing YAML is the new theme. It is more proactive. It's more it's sorry, not proactive. Sorry, it's readable. It's
Mhm.
more structured, and that's the reason that modern applications are supporting YAML, and we wanted to extend that support. That was the first line of thinking behind that.
Okay, okay, thanks. Um, I'm sure you must have seen the new threading model in Mule 4.3 that came out just like last week or sometime. Do, do you want to share
Mm-hmm.
any thoughts around what had changed, the Uber thread model that came in 4.3 versus the one that we talked in this presentation about multiple levels of thread pools in there.
Yeah, so honestly, I would not talk about that. That's
Mhm.
a significant change, and you're right. We are actually trying to build some content around that. Okay, we are
Okay.
trying to build a content around. mm, I mean, yesterday, as of yesterday, also I had a
Mhm.
call with my counterparts in the performance engineering tool and marketing as to how we want to put that out. So I have limited information and I don't want to throw out something, but you will
Okay.
hear a lot of training and a lot of documentation and blogs that are coming around that new trading model and how to take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Considering it just released like recently, there is a small page on the MuleSoft doc, so maybe that could be just a starting point for
Yeah,
now.
that's a starting point. That's
Yeah,
tip of the iceberg. There's more to come for sure.
and yeah, and I have put the
Stay
link
tuned.
of to the document in the chat. So if people you haven't seen that, feel free to check that out. Okay, the next one, it's a comment from Tony. I think it says, do you know if Spring 5 is incompatible with Mule Spring Security? I maybe that's not a question, Tom. No, probably it's not a question.
No,
I just grabbed the comment. Okay, let's skip over that for now, unless I see another anything follow up on the chat. But the next one was, is there any recommendation that before you go to Mule 4, you should migrate your Mule 3 apps to Mule 3.9 runtimes and then go for Mule 4 migration? Is there any thoughts
this
around
is an
that?
excellent question.
Mhm.
So let
And it's from
me
one of
answer
our
that. The
past
answer
speaker.
is, yeah, the answer is no. So the answer is you can directly migrate from an older version to Mule 4. In fact, that should be the impetus. If you are on Mule 3.7, I hope you are not, but if you are, or if you are in 3.8, you directly think about moving to Mule 4. The reason is that you can take advantage of those. This is one effort. So the reason is very simple. Why you do make two efforts, right? One is you have to make some changes to go to Mule.3.9, and again then a big step to move into Mule 4. When you are making change, directly try to move into Mule 4.
Okay, and I
Next
think
question.
yeah, and I think that's because there's a drastic change between 3 and 4, so it may not be helpful to do it, right?
Yeah. There would be some duplications. I mean, this is a question that I have come across pretty often. But like our suggestion is you don't have to go to
Mhm.
3.9 to get to 4. You can
Okay,
directly get to 4. Yeah.
okay, that's good. Thanks. So there are a few questions or the comments about batch processing in Mule 4. Do you
hmm
want to, like, on high level, just share your thoughts on batch processing, how it is in Mule 4, or any reference links or anything for the team?
Yeah, so batch processing has changed significantly. So I understand that there is some friction around that. We need to understand that there is a batch scope, and then how would we introduce that batch scope, right? So that is something that we need to consider. I think another thing that we need to consider are the watermarks. The watermarks are not there, and our polling has been reduced by a scheduler. Then there are some. So if the mostly what I have seen initially
Mhm.
there are some performance problems. Okay, there were some performance problems because we were holding the Mule 4 messages in memory, and in batch it can cause a lot of issue, right?
Yeah.
Run in real time in APIs, it was not that of a problem, but in batch that was causing a lot of issues. So we have fixed those. Okay, we fixed that in 4.2.2, and and we are continually making fixes on top of that. 4.3 also have a lot of fixes around that. I think we have seen significant improvement across customers in terms of batch performance now in Mule 4. So that's something around that. If you have specific questions, then there are links. Actually, there are some blogs that are there in terms of batch processing. I'm trying to find my slide here, but there's so yeah. So there is some batch some problems around that, and then those problems and specific use cases has been discussed extensively on those blogs. So
Yeah.
I would be able to I would refer you to them, and then obviously if you have specific questions, you can reach out in help.mulesoft.com.
Okay. And
So this is the batch module. Batch module is that there is some. This is the 2017, but there is an updated version as well in the blogs. So check that out. I would recommend.
okay. And if I'm not wrong, I'll be able to share this slide presentation on the meetup page. So
Sure.
feel guys feel free to go back to the event page and you will see the presentation updated there. Okay, so that's one. The other question is, what is the best way to migrate session variables, especially when they contain token or other sensitive information?
So so first of all, we need to see, okay, why you would have a session variable, and uh, then because a session variable is typically something which is a large and introduces state. So if we can think about an alternative way as to handle that, so it depends on what you have actually in your session variable,
Mm.
and based on that we can suggest alternatives, because there is no direct thing in Mule 4. So based on the situation, you need to see exactly what you want to do, and then based on that, we can definitely find a compatible thing in Mule 4, and you can take that route.
Okay, okay.
It
Yeah.
depends on what you have basically in your system regime.
Right.
If you have like some configuration things, see if you can take advantage of secure properties or some. So I mean, I don't want to go into details, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there is no easy answer to the question.
All right. Okay, thanks. We talked about migration tool, right? So does migration tool also take care of migrating data view 1 scripts to data view 2 scripts?
Yeah, this is a hot cake. I was
I
thinking
know.
when this will come up. So
It's yeah.
yeah, so I would say just hold on to it. Okay, I mean this is this. I don't want to commit to anything, but it is going to it is going to give you suggestions. It is going to do some level of transformations. It cannot do all transformations. So I would say that there is a lot coming around that. Okay, and it's not too far. I mean, all I can say is just bear for maybe one more month, or and then you would have it, and then you can try it out um, and see for yourself. I don't actually have much permission to talk beyond that, because we haven't released that product, and we should not talk about that in a public forum without releasing that product,
So yeah. So we
especially
can
when
say
it's a public guidelines around that.
yeah, it's like just stay tuned for more.
Yeah, and it's not very far. I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you, I mean, honestly, I most likely a month.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I think no, that's fair. And one other thing, I don't know if you have used a data view playground. Probably you have.
Yeah,
If
very good point. Yeah.
and people have not used data view playground, take a look at the data view playground. At one point, I know when I copied my data view 1 script and pasted in data view 2 playground, it did some migration, converted that script into data view 2. It could be a same good point to start converting your script. But again, like you said, it may not be able to do like 100% conversion because of certain things. There may not be any replacement or a completely different way of writing things, but it could give you some pointers.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point, Manik, that you brought up. Data
Yeah,
Weave Playground. I'm sure that some of you are already taking advantage of it, but in case you are not, don't miss on it. I mean, this is again not a supported thing from MuleSoft, but again, something that you should not miss out as a MuleSoft developer. This is
yeah.
such a cool thing that you should definitely try out.
What I'll do, I'll drop a link in the chat also for those who haven't
Mm-hmm.
seen it. And it like Prasenjit said, it's not like an official link. It
Yeah,
can go up and down anytime, but there is a Docker version of that available on Docker Hub. You can always pull that image and run it your own playground wherever you have access to. So I do that. I
yeah.
always have my playground running in my local network, so I don't depend on that public version of it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Another point is actually,
Mhm,
if it
mhm.
doesn't work, don't raise a support ticket.
Yeah, I mean
Just not supported.
it's not supported, it's not official, but apart from all that, I have found that it is extremely helpful too, at least
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
when I work on
definitely. It's very
database. It's
helpful.
really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so feel free for that, guys, to use it. If not, just run it for yourself, new version. With that, I think we are at time. So I know we had scheduled it for 12 to 1 and we are at time. So I do want to take a moment and thank you everyone for joining us tonight, today morning. It's difficult. You guys are at spread all over the world, right? So thank you for joining us today. And I'm just going to scan quickly, Prasenjit, for any question.
Hmm.
Uh, it's all discussions. Yeah, that was the last question around data view to data view 2.
Hmm.
And can I use Java in both Mule versions?
Yeah, you can use Java
Mhm.
definitely. All new JDKs are actually supported up to JDK 11. So definitely, if you want to take advantage, you can. But here you need to think about, why you want to do that. Okay, so for example, we used to have this seamlessly write some groovy scripts or some Java scripts for some transformations, right? So like Java classes.
Yeah.
If you want to do, I mean, first check out whether that is already easily doable. In that case, you will have a huge performance benefit just to use the data weave. Okay, other
Mhm.
than that, you can write a custom function and you can use that. In fact, a code snippet has been shared in one of my slide, which shows that how you can just write a custom Java function and then invoke that using data weave.
Okay, that's good. And I think that answers because my follow-up question was going to be on the chat. I see this thing like it is recommended not to use Java and custom scripting and all that in Mule 4. Why is that? And probably you already answered that. Like there could be a better alternatives or easy alternatives by using data weave or other functions in there.
Yeah, and that can give you very good performance benefit, because when you are using the data wave, the performance is already taken care, versus when is you are using the Java, it is slightly an uncharted territory. You can go anywhere, right? And you can
Yeah.
write a lot of things in that function.
Yes.
And try not to take that route, because once you take that, I know we come from a Java background, if you keep taking that route, is like your code becomes lumpy and becomes a lot of custom code involved. So then you go into this uncharted territory where you can have performance issues later on, and you will not be
Yeah.
able to figure that out easily.
Yeah. No, no, that's true. All right. I think we are at time already past that one. So thank you very much, Prasenjit. It was an amazing presentation. Of course, it's a never-ending topic. We can keep talking about it forever. Like it can go for hours and hours, right? Like there are so many things. It's so huge and big topic, and so many things to talk about.
No, thank you, Manik. You have been great. You've been a
No,
great ambassador for MuleSoft, and with the way you've been conducting the sessions, it's great. I'm thankful to be a part of this. I wanted to be a part of this, and so one of my objective is fulfilled, I would say.
That's glad to hear. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone, especially all our audience. Thank you for tuning in. So as usual, stay safe wherever you are and keep integrating.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.